Okay, so let's get started. I'm Chef Dipanshu, and today we'll be making some amazing garlic knots. So we'll be starting with the dough, and while we are in the process, we'll be making the garlic butter as well, and then we'll do the shaping and the baking part. So let's start with the dough first. Okay. So can I have a seat? Alright, so we'll be starting with the dough. Now, it is very important to sieve your ingredients first. So first, I have the flour. So I'm sieving all the dry ingredients together. The recipe will be shared after the session is over. So it will be shared on Instagram on the Truthful Nation story. So from there, you can see the recipe and download it. So we are starting with the dough and we are sieving the dry ingredients together first. So I have the flour in the sieve. Now the salt, the yeast. So yeast is instant yeast that we are using, the garlic powder, and the castor sugar. We'll just give it a sift and in the bowl, so that creates the aeration in this. So if you don't sieve it, the problem will be that there could be lumps of flour or some other dry ingredients. So it is better to sieve it so that mixing is easy. Now with as we have sieved it, now we'll start adding the liquid ingredient. In the liquid ingredients we have water and milk with us. So first I'm gonna add the milk. So milk I'm adding all, and right now I'm just forming a rough dough in the bowl only, and then we'll start with the kneading process. So use your hands or spatula, just mix the dough. So don't add all the liquid ingredients together, but because that might create a sticky dough, so you have to add the liquid ingredients gradually so that you don't end up with a sticky dough. You can see the consistency of the dough while you are adding the liquid ingredient gradually. So after adding the milk, I'm adding the water. I'm not adding all the water, so half of what I have. So just mixing it in the bowl first. Once you have a rough dough, once you have a crumble, then you can add the rest of the liquid ingredients. So I'm adding the rest of the water, just saving some just in case. Okay, so the dough is almost formed. I would be needing some more water, so I'm adding all the water that I have left. This is around 4 to 5 grams. So once you have a rough dough, then we'll take it on the counter and we'll start with the kneading process. I'll tell you the kneading process, how to start with the kneading. Then we'll knead this dough in the stand mixer. Okay, so I have a rough dough. On the counter, I'll be starting with the kneading process. Okay, so for the kneading process, what you have to do is you have to stretch the dough and combine it again. So like this, keep the dough on the counter, so it is better if you have a large counter to knead the dough on, so that you have good space for the kneading process. So I'm keeping one hand on the bottom and with the other hand I'm stretching it. So like this, in the starting this will break. So you have to just combine again, rotate it, and then again stretch it. It is breaking, that is fine. So this process we have to do fast to form the gluten. So we are actually aligning the gluten strands in it, and with the alignment of the gluten strands, the dough will be more smooth and stretchy. So that's why we are doing this process. The kneading process is like this. We have to stretch the dough to align the gluten like that. So like this, you have to do the process fast, like this. So you have to be this fast to form the gluten. If you are very slow, it would take too much time to form the gluten, and you will be very tired. So like this, you have to form the gluten. So this is one way of kneading the dough, that is stretch and combine method. So we are stretching the dough, we are combining it and rotating it. Again stretching it, combining it and rotating it. So this is the process that we follow for the kneading. Okay, so we'll be taking it to the stand mixer, and I'll tell you how to knead the dough in the stand mixer as well. So you just have to put the dough inside the bowl. If you want to use the stand mixer from the starting, that is also fine. Just sieve all the dry ingredients in the stand mixer bowl and attach the attachment and then start kneading it. So I'm going to use the paddle attachment. We usually use the dough hook attachment, but since the dough quantity is quite less, so that's why we're using the paddle attachment, because with the dough hook it might take some more time to knead the dough properly. So that's why we are using the paddle attachment. So this is the paddle attachment. Those of people who haven't seen, this is the dough hook which we usually use for kneading, and this is the paddle attachment. This also you can use for the kneading process. If your dough is less, then only use this, because this put pressure on the machine, so it is not recommended as such. But if your dough is around 150 to 180 grams, then you can use the paddle attachment as well. So just gonna attach it, lock it, and close it. So once it is locked, then we are gonna start with the kneading. So on the low speed, then I'm gonna increase the speed to medium. Okay, so you have to increase the speed, because if you keep kneading on the low speed only, then it might take some more time, and there are chances that the dough might get over kneaded also, because there are chances in the machine that the dough might get over kneaded. With the hands, there are less probability that the dough will be over kneaded, because you know how the consistency of the dough is. So while kneading with hands, you know how the dough is. But in the stand mixer, sometimes there are chances that you might leave it like that. You think that it is getting kneaded, and you continue to do something else. In that process, the dough might get over kneaded. So you have to keep an eye. So I'm increasing the speed a bit. Shiv, do we have any questions right now?
She is asking, can they make this bread with whole wheat flour?
Oh yes, you can make this bread with whole wheat flour, but the thing is the result will be a bit dense, because whole wheat flour is the result of whole wheat flour is a bit dense, because it is difficult to form gluten in the whole wheat flour. So yes, it will be formed, but it is a bit difficult because of the presence of bran and germ that is there in the whole wheat flour. So that's why the result is a bit dense. But yes, you can use the whole wheat flour as well, or you can use a combination of maida or whole wheat flour.
They're asking, have you used active dry yeast in this recipe?
I have used the instant yeast in this recipe.
They're asking, is it compulsory to knead the dough?
Sorry?
Is it compulsory to knead the
Yes,
dough?
it is very compulsory to knead the dough, because kneading actually aligns the gluten strands, and in bread making, gluten is actually the main part of bread making that you need to have in your bread. Then only your bread will be super soft.
They're asking, can we use a hand beater?
You won't be able to use a hand beater as such, because the hand beater has the whisk attachment. If your hand beater has a dough hook attachment, then you can use that.
They're asking, can we activate the yeast separately?
See, in instant yeast, it is not recommended to use to activate the yeast first, because the particles are so minute that it gets directly mixed in the dough. But if you are using the active dry yeast, then yes, you have to activate it first.
They're asking, can this entire kneading process be done by hand?
Yes, this entire kneading process can be done by hands. You just have to follow the process that I told you before with hands, and you have to keep kneading on like that for at least 10 minutes. Then I'll show you at what point you have to stop, and at what point you have to add the fat, that can be butter or oil.
They're asking, can we add gluten and bread improver if they're using whole wheat flour?
Yes, you can add the improver and gluten, but in that case also the kneading should be perfect. Then only the bread will be soft. Otherwise, adding the gluten powder and improver powder will give it a little bit push, but again you have to do the kneading.
They're asking, how to check whether the gluten is formed?
Yes, I'm just gonna show you that how to check whether the gluten has formed or not. At that point we have to add the fat. I'll just show you in 1 minute when the dough has been kneaded.
If you tell them that the recipe is available on YouTube description.
Okay, so we have already put the recipe in the YouTube description box. There you can check all the ingredients that we are using and their quantities as well. Alright, so the dough is almost kneaded. Now we are gonna add the fat. Right, so I'm gonna show you at what point you have to stop. So as you can see, the dough is quite smooth now. by look also and by feel also. So at this point we do a test called window pane test. So that is used for checking the gluten formation. I'll just show you how to do it. So what you do, you take a small portion of the dough. In your between your fingers you stretch and flatten it. So like this you have to stretch it and you have to flatten it gently. You don't have to tear it apart. You just have to stretch it gently and flatten it also. So we need a thin translucent layer, and that will show you the formation of gluten. If you have done this in the starting, the dough would have broken just like that. But right now, as you can see, it is getting stretched. So I'm just, stretching it like this. Now I'm not flattening it too much, I'm just stretching it. So as you can see, it is getting a break a little bit, but we have a thin translucent layer. You can see the finger also from behind. So at this point you have to add the fat. That can be oil or butter. So at this point you have to knead it first, either on the counter or in the machine. So now I'm going to add the fat, that is the butter. So just putting on the dough like that. And again we'll start the kneading process. Tightly secure it, then only start it. So again on the medium speed we are starting. So if you don't want to use butter, you can use oil as well, but butter has a good rich taste. That's why I have used the butter, so that your bread has a good taste from inside also. You can use the oil. Oil is also a very good fat and will give you a very soft crumb. So on medium speed we are kneading it. Well, when you add the butter, then the dough will break. When you start kneading it after adding the fat, it will start baking, because we are emulsifying the fat in it, and the dough also has moisture, so they are too immiscible liquid. That's why we do the kneading process, so that both the fat and the liquid gets combined. That is called emulsification. So that's why we knead the dough properly, and then only after 5 to 10 minutes the dough will again combine. See, if you are kneading by hands, then it might take you 10 to 15 minutes, because if you are new with breads, your speed will be a bit slow while kneading, so it might take you 10 to 15 minutes, not more than that. So the dough is almost kneaded, and I'll just take it out in about 10 to 15 seconds, and we'll again do the window pane test. It is very important to do the window pane test, as that is the only way by which you know that gluten has been formed. Also, you can see the dough, it would be more smooth, it would be more silky, and it would be more soft also, but it is very important to do the window pane test just to be sure. Okay.
Yeah. Chef, we have a few questions, like which butter did you use, salted or unsalted?
I used salted butter.
Okay. And was it at room temperature or cold?
Yeah, that was soft butter at room temperature. Alright, so as you can see, the dough is again soft and smooth. I'll just take a small portion again and do the window pane test once again. So I'm just again flattening it and stretching it between my fingers to get the thin translucent layer. Like this. As you can see, it is very smooth, it is not breaking now. So that means the gluten has fully developed. You don't have to knead it after this point, otherwise the dough will be over kneaded. So at this point you can see the layer is so smooth. This point you have to stop and then proceed with the rest of the method. So now we are gonna keep this dough for the primary fermentation. Primary fermentation is the step in which the dough develops flavor. It rises, the yeast works, and it rises in the bowl, and the flavor develops, and after that only we degas it and then do the shaping process.
Chef,
Yes.
If they want to know more about primary fermentation or kneading,
Yes.
then you can explain to them about our upcoming courses.
Yeah, so the primary fermentation is a big part, and it has many factors. So if you want to know more about the primary fermentation and the different methods of the stages of bread making, then we have an upcoming course on breads that is starting from Tuesday. So you can enroll for that, and we'll have many techniques in that, and we'll be making 100% whole wheat bread also. So that is without any maida. so that you'll be able to learn that also. And yes.
So we can tell them that they can get the link of the registration on the YouTube.
Okay, yeah. So the link for registration is in the YouTube description box. You can click on that and check the page. There you'll get all the details. So for keeping it for primary fermentation, we have to first make it into a smooth, nice ball. So I've just combined the dough. I'm just pressing it a bit, and on the counter, I'm just gonna roll it like this. As you can see, it is a nice and smooth ball. We have to keep it for primary fermentation for about 20 to 30 minutes depending upon the room temperature. Since it's hot in here, so it will get proofed in about 20 to 25 minutes. So I'm just going to take one bowl. I'm going to grease this bowl a bit. So it is very important to grease also, because when you put it for primary fermentation in the bowl, there are chances the dough might stick to the bowl. That's why we are greasing it. We are putting some oil also on the dough. And keep it inside the bowl. Now just you have to wrap it. So we are wrapping it because if you don't wrap it, because of the air, the layer the dough will get dry. So that's why we are wrapping it, so that no air gets inside and it's nice, hot and humid inside, so that dough has the optimum temperature to rise. So I'm just gonna keep it on the side, and I already have a proof dough with me. So I'm gonna show you the shaping with that. Can I have the dough, please?
We have a few questions, if you can answer.
Yes, just a second. Yeah.
So Shiv, they're asking what is the difference between active dry yeast and instant yeast?
Yes, first, active dry yeast is actually the granules of active dry yeast are a bit bigger, and while the instant yeast is, the granules of instant yeast are minute. So you can add, that's why you can add the instant yeast directly in the flour. Whereas with the active dry yeast, you have to first activate it in the warm water, let it dissolve, let it get frothy, and then we use that water. So while if we use the instant yeast, it is time saving. So that's why we use it, and we can directly add it.
And Shiv, if they want to use active dry yeast instead of instant, what would be the ratio?
See, if you want to use active dry yeast instead of the instant yeast, since active dry yeast has less concentration of yeast cells, you have to add more of the quantity. So we multiply the quantity by 1.2, and we take that quantity of the active dry yeast and use that. So whatever the quantity of the instant yeast is mentioned, you have to just multiply it by 1.2, and that quantity of active dry yeast you have to take.
Someone is asking if they want to make it with whole wheat flour, what would be the quantity of gluten and improver in the recipe?
See, with this quantity of the flour, that is 180 grams that we are using, the quantity of gluten and improver would be around 3 or 4 grams each.
Alright. I think, Chef, we can proceed. We'll take more questions later.
Yes, we'll proceed. So as you can see, it has almost doubled up in size. So this has been sitting for around 22 to 25 minutes. So this has almost doubled up in size. So you have to proof it till this point, right? So there is a test called ripe test which we do to check the primary fermentation part. What we do is we take our fingers and we have to just poke it, and we have to take it out. If the indentation remain, that means the dough has been proofed. So right now we are just gonna degas it. Degassing is just, we are just pushing the dough back down and removing excess carbon dioxide that is present in the dough. So like this, you have to take it on the counter. On the counter as well, you have to put some oil so that the dough doesn't stick to the counter. Not too much, just a bit. Alright, like this, you have to put it on the counter. Just press it a bit so that it is smooth again. Now we are going to take out the portion. So we are going to portion it out by taking 30 grams portion size, and you have to take the portion equal in size. So I'll just measure the dough. How much is it? So it is around 300 grams. So we'll get 10 portions of 30 grams each. So I'm going to take out the portions. So for taking out the portions, what you have to do is you just have to flatten the dough and you have to take out the strips. So like this, you have to take out the portions and then you can measure it. So this is about 19 grams. You can just add it. So like this, you have to take out the portions. So while you are keeping it on the counter, you have to keep them covered, otherwise they will dry up. Can I have the clean wrap? So I am just covering it with a clean wrap so that the portions or the dough doesn't get dried up. Like this, just cover it. Or if you don't have clean wrap, you can just cover it with a cloth also. That is also fine. Right?
Chef, most of them are asking which yeast did we use for the recipe and from where to get the improver and gluten.
See, we use the instant yeast for the recipe, and improver and gluten you can get online also and from any other bakery vendor also. Like this. So we have taken out 30 grams portion. So 1 or 2 grams up or down is fine. So I hope how to take out the portion part is clear. I'm just gonna keep this dough on the side since we have some portions. Alright, so now as you can see, while you'll be cutting it, you might have 2 or 3, you have to cut 2 or 3 times to get the exact size. You have to combine it first. So just keep them together and press it. Okay, so like this, just combine it and with your fingers just flatten it out a bit so that the dough gets combined. Okay, like this. Again, I am gonna cover it. So while you are working, you have to cover the dough, otherwise it will get dried up and it would be a bit difficult for you to do the shaping process, do the other process, as a thick layer would be formed on the dough, and when you are doing the shaping process, that might tear apart. So that's why we are keeping it covered so that it doesn't get dried up. Okay, like this. So just combine all the parts of one portion that you have with you, so that you have a combined portion, and then you can cover it again. Oh, is this visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Like this, just press it and again cover it. So I have 4 portions with me. Just gonna do one more. So after you do this, you have to let them rest. You have to at least let them rest for at least 5 to 10 minutes. So 5 minutes is minimum. Again, you can keep it for 10 to 15 minutes also. Because at this point the gluten will relax and it will help us to do the shaping part. Because if I try to shape it right now, the gluten is very tight, and if I try to roll it right now, the dough will tear apart. That's why it is very important to let it rest first, so that the gluten and the dough can relax a bit. Then we can shape it. So I'm just pressing it to combine it and keeping it covered. Alright, so till the time it is resting, we'll take some questions and then we'll proceed. Do we have some questions?
Yeah. Chef, can they use fresh garlic in this recipe?
Yes, you can use fresh garlic as well. You can use roasted garlic. You can use garlic powder. So that is up to you. It's just that if you are using the garlic powder, it gets incorporated properly. Garlic portions, if you chop the garlic, they might come into the bite. So that's why I've used the garlic powder. I've used the roasted garlic in the garlic butter recipe.
Chef, they're asking, can they use wet cloth instead of clean wrap every time?
Yes, you can use a wet cloth, but it should be a little bit wet, not too much wet also, because that might affect the dough. So that's why you have if you are taking a cloth, it could be a little wet, not more. Yeah.
Okay, Chef, they're asking which brand of improver and yeast we have used?
See, we have used, we have taken it from the vendor. If you want to use a branded one, that you can use the Wiesmill or the Wintop one as well.
Alright. Chef, will this video be saved on IGTV later?
Yes, it will be saved on IGTV as well and on the YouTube as well.
Okay, great.
Right. So while the dough is resting, we'll make our garlic butter as well.
Chef, someone is asking, can they make the dough and keep it in the freezer?
See, you can make the dough and keep it in the freezer for some time. I wouldn't recommend to keep it in the freezer for a longer period of time, as you know, if the condensation forms on it, it might affect the dough. So if you are properly wrapping it, if you are keeping an airtight container, then only keep it in the freezer, and be careful while you are keeping it in the freezer.
Chef, they're asking, can they use fresh yeast in this recipe?
See, you can use fresh yeast in the recipe, but it is very difficult to procure fresh yeast, as it is not available in the retail market, and most of the vendors also doesn't have it. If you want, yes, you can use that, but if you are if you have access to instant yeast, I would recommend to use the instant yeast. Alright, so for the garlic butter, you just have to take the butter and every spices together, and you just have to mix it. So this is again salted butter I have. So this is at room temperature, it is soft. If your butter is cold, you can just microwave it for 5 to 10 seconds while when it is soft, then you can use it. So I've added the butter. This is the roasted garlic that I have. So adding that, garlic powder, or some oregano, black pepper, and chili flakes. So I've added all these spices. Now I'm just gonna mix it. Okay, so as you can see, all the spices have been mixed and your garlic butter is ready. You can keep this covered in the fridge if you want to use that later on, or if you want to just use it right at the moment, then also you can use it. So I'm just going to keep it on the side, and we are going to start with the shaping process. So I'm going to show you 2 to 3 design of making a knot, of making garlic knots, or you can use any other flavor also. So you can use 2-3 designs. I'll show you all. You can choose whatever you like. So first is where we take 4 strips and then we shape it. So like this, you have 1 strip. What you have to do, you have to divide this one into 4 parts. So you don't have to measure it, just by seeing it you have to measure, you have to take out the portion. Now you have to roll this. So using your hands, like this, into a rope. You have to do this with every part. So the length of the rope should be equal. Once you roll it, it will shrink back together a bit. So you can just again elongate it like this. The third part. So using both your hands, you are just pushing it outwards, and it will get stretched. So I have the 3 parts. Now the last one. Like this. Okay, so you have the 4 parts, so almost equal in length. Now what you have to do is, I'll just keep it in the center so that the focus is there. So what you have to do is, now you have to flatten it. So like this, with your thumb you can just flatten it a bit. Now we'll brush garlic butter on it. So either you can use a small palette knife or brush also. So I'm using a small palette knife. I'm just putting some garlic butter on it. This design is a bit time consuming. The other, which I'll show you, are a bit less time consuming, but this gives a good flavor as we are brushing the garlic butter inside as well. So on all the strips, some garlic butter, not too much, so that it is not difficult to handle the dough. Some garlic butter. Now what you have to stack it. So I just take 1 strip on 1 and 3. With the last one, I'm just gonna flip it so that the plain side is up and keep it on the top. Now you have, just press it a bit, and from the center we are gonna lift it up like this. So what you have to do is you have to keep 2 fingers, and with the points you have to twist them together, and from behind you have to close the knot while taking the points inside the gap that we have, like this. Can I have a baking tray, please? So I have this baking tray with me. I'm just gonna grease that a bit, not too much oil, just a bit, so that while the knots are getting baked, it doesn't get stuck to the tray. Just keep it on like that. Okay, so this was the first design that we have. Alright, now for the second one. So for the second one, I'm not gonna divide it. I'm just gonna flatten it a bit. Again, we have to make it into a single rope only. So just flattening it a bit. For tightening it so that it doesn't have any gaps, I'm just rolling it over. And now I'm gonna stretch it. So the stretching procedure is same, not too much. Now I have this. Again, I'm just gonna keep 2 fingers here like this, twist the ends, and from behind make it into a knot. So you have this shape, right? I'll show this once again.
Okay, Shiv, after
Yes?
shaping, can you show just this direction as well? Like
Okay,
final product?
sure. So just flattening it a bit, rolling it over so that it is tight and there is no bubble gap or air bubble inside it. Now rolling it. Alright, so pointy edges. Again, you have to keep your 2 fingers inside, so there is a gap. With the pointy edge, you have to twist them together from behind, taken from inside. Ashif, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now one more design. So here also we need the strip. Just again roll it over so that it is tight. Now again roll it.
So, Chef, in these ones, we will be brushing the garlic butter from top?
Yes, we'll be brushing the garlic butter from top. That's why the first design which I showed you is more flavorful, because inside also we are putting the garlic butter. In these one, we are just gonna brush it on the top. Alright, now you have this. Here you have to make a knot like this. Take it from inside and just stretch it a bit so that it is tight. Now these edges you have to tuck it inside below that. Okay, so you have this design now. Okay, so these are the designs which you can make. Are these clear, or shall I make one more and show you? Okay, I'll show you one more. The last one again I'll show you. So again flatten it. Just tighten it a bit. Now roll over. So once you have a strip like this, make a knot from inside. You have a knot, tuck the edges below it. So you have this, right? Keep it. Now we'll be brushing garlic butter on it. Okay. So take the garlic butter and just lightly brush it on it. On the knots, you just have to brush it. You can either melt it a bit and then also you can brush it. Otherwise, it is soft right now. That's why I'm brushing it like this only. So that's why at this time it is very important to brush the garlic butter because it will get incorporated in the bread and it will give a good flavor also. Some more. So in all of the portions you have to brush them. So with this dough you will get about 10 portions and you can make any design you like. Like this. Properly brush it with garlic butter so that it can absorb, because at this point we are keeping it for proofing and they will rise. So we are keeping it for around 20 to 30 minutes and until they are doubled up in size, and then we'll bake it. So I have already proofed one, so I'll just show you. If you can see the difference between the two, you can see that they have almost doubled up in size. So these are very small, these are actually quite big. So these are the same portion size, it's just that you have to keep it for around 20 to 30 minutes until they get doubled up in size. So I'm just keeping this for proofing. At this point, if you feel that it will open up a bit, so if you have some dry gaps, you can just put some more garlic butter, or if you have some fresh herbs also like parsley, thyme or basil, you can just chop that and sprinkle on the top. So brushing some, because I see some gaps on the dough, that's why I'm brushing it, so that it has a more intense flavor of garlic. So at this point you don't have to press too much, because the carbon dioxide is inside, the air is inside, you don't have to deflate them. So just lightly brush them like this. Okay, now we are gonna keep it for baking. So baking is done at 220 degrees Celsius because these are very soft knots. So we have to increase the temperature. That's why baking at 220 degrees Celsius for about 10 to 15 minutes till they have a nice golden color on the top, and then you can consume it. So I'm just gonna put it in the oven.
Chef, on which rack we will be placing them?
We'll be placing them on the lower rack, so that because the tray is quite big, so that's why I'm putting on the lower rack, so that it is around in the middle of the oven. That's why I'm putting in the lower rack. Otherwise, if your oven is big, around 70 to 80 liters, if your OTG is like that, then you can put it in the middle shelf, no problem. Right now our OTG is around, this one is around 40 liters. So if you keep it on the middle rack, there are chances that the dough might get burnt, because the rod is too close to the dough. That's why you have to keep it on the lower shelf.
Chef, we have a few questions.
Yeah, right. Just a second, we'll take some questions now while the bread is getting baked. Yes, chef.
Chef, can they bake these breads on convection oven?
See, you can make it in convection if you mean with convection. If you mean the microwave one, you can actually make it, but I wouldn't recommend that, because in the convection mode of microwave, the upper rod is only there. So it doesn't get a proper heat from below, because only the rod is only at the upper. So that's why I wouldn't recommend baking breads in the convection mode of microwave. But if you don't have any option, if you don't have OTG, then yes, you can bake it at the same temperature. Just keep an eye that it doesn't get burnt.
Chef, what would be the temperature for a deck oven?
Deck oven temperature would be the same, that is 220 degrees Celsius, up and lower.
Okay. Chef, they're asking if they want to mix whole wheat and maida together, what
Yes.
would be the ratio?
See, ratio depends on you. You can either make it 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. That totally depends on you. The more you increase the quantity of whole wheat flour, the more dense it will be. So you have to see how dense you want. If you want to make it too much healthy, then yes, you can use 100% whole wheat flour also, but then the rolls would be not too much soft. If you do the proper kneading process, if you form the gluten properly, then yes, it would be soft. But it's just that you have to know the kneading process properly. Then only the 100% whole wheat bread would be soft. Otherwise, it would be too much dense.
Chef, can we bake without using an improver?
Improver or proofer?
Improver.
Improver. Yes, you can obviously make the dough without using any improver or gluten powder. In this recipe, I haven't added that. So without that also you can make a super soft dough.
How much bread improver and gluten should we add to the flour?
See, with this recipe, the flour is around 180 grams. So you can add 2 grams of each.
Chef, they're asking, can they add chopped garlic in the dough also while kneading?
Yes, you can add the chopped garlic in the dough as well. But if you add the chopped garlic and the garlic pieces are too big, there are chances that it would be a bit difficult for you to form the gluten because the garlic pieces will interfere with the gluten formation.
Chef, they're asking, is there any replacement of yeast for fermentation? Can they use anything else?
See, for fermentation, we use yeast only because it is a microorganism, so it it is needed for the fermentation process. But if you want to use baking powder, baking soda, yes you can, but I wouldn't recommend it. And if you're adding baking powder, baking soda, I wouldn't call that a bread because the main essence of bread is the yeast that and the flavor that the yeast produces.
Chef, they're saying, can they use normal sugar instead of castor sugar?
I wouldn't recommend you to use the normal sugar because normal sugar takes time. The granules are too big and it takes more time to get dissolved. And while you're kneading it, the granules are so big that it interferes with the gluten formation. That's why we use the castor sugar because the granules are too fine and it easily gets dissolved when you add the water.
Chef, somebody is confused. They're thinking like active yeast and dry yeast quantity will be same for the recipe.
You mean the instant yeast and the
Yeah,
active dry yeast? See, the quantity will almost be the same, so that's why I said you to multiply the quantity by 1.2 or 1.3, so that will give you the quantity of active dry yeast. So if you have instant yeast in your recipe, you have to just multiply that quantity with 1.2 or 1.3 is also fine. That quantity you have to use for the active dry yeast because the yeast cells are less in active dry yeast. That's why we are just increasing the quantity a bit.
Chef, they're asking, can they make this in a mixie? Can they knead the dough in a mixie?
See, if you mean a mixer grinder, then no, you can't make a dough in the mixer grinder because the blades are too sharp and the kneading process won't happen. It will just keep on tearing the dough.
Chef, in oven, which mode are you using, with fan or without fan?
We are using the upper and lower rod only without fan.
Also, chef, the water and milk that you added should be warm or cold?
It should be at room temperature or a bit warm. That is around 30 degrees Celsius. That is fine, not more than that.
Chef, they're asking, can they use multigrain atta in this recipe?
See, you can use a multigrain atta, but again, I would say because the multigrain atta has different types of flour in that, the bread would be a bit dense.
Chef, they're asking, can they use a sourdough culture instead of commercial yeast?
See, you can use a sourdough culture, but sourdough culture again reacts in a very different way, and sourdough is again a very wide topic in itself. So yes, you can add, but the fermentation process would be too slow, the flavor would be a bit sour, and the quantity would also differ. So if you are very much sure of the sourdough culture, then only add it, otherwise use the commercial yeast only.
Chef, they're asking, which OTG would you recommend for a home baker?
See, for a home baker, you can use this. You can take this OTG, that is Morphy Richards 40 liter. So you can use this for. This is a quite nice size for a home baker. If you want to go for a bigger one, that also you can.
Chef, they are asking, can we use a hand beater with dough?
Hand beater with dough hook, yes, you can use that. It's just that you have to be a bit stiff with the hand beater because when the dough gets formed, it will keep on moving in the ball. So you just have to keep your hand firm so that it is inside the dough.
Chef, can you suggest a brand of stand mixer for home bakers?
For stand mixer, see, you can go for either Wonder Chef or for, if your budget is there, then you can go for KitchenAid also.
Chef, can we add minced garlic while kneading the dough?
Yes, you can add minced garlic, but again, as I said earlier also, the garlic the size of the garlic granule shouldn't be too much, shouldn't be too big, then it will interfere with the gluten process. So you have to fine chop it very much.
Chef, they're asking, her oven has upper rod with fan option,
Okay.
but it doesn't have both rods with fan.
But if it has upper and lower rod, then you can bake it.
Okay. Chef, can they bake this bread in a cooker?
See, yes, you can make this bread in the cooker also, but you wouldn't be able to bake too much portions because the cooker size is too small. You'll be able to add only 3 or 4 portion maximum. As it is round also, then you have to put a round tin inside it, and maximum 3 to 4 portion only you'll be able to bake it.
Okay, chef. I think we have answered most of the questions.
Okay.
Okay. Sir, you can tell them about your upcoming course, what all will be included.
Okay. So basically, right now, since we don't have any question, if you have any other doubt, you can just post it, and I'll be happy to answer that. And while the bread is getting baked, I just want to inform you that we have an upcoming course, bread master class, that is starting from Tuesday, and it will be a 8-day master class, and you'll be learning 14 different types of bread. So there we are doing the basic ones as well as the advanced ones, so that you can make it according to your preference. With the basic one, we'll be teaching first. I'll be teaching you how to knead the dough first. I'll be teaching you some theory points that are very important while we make a bread, because yes, you can do the practical, but you should have the theory knowledge also, because once something goes wrong, if you don't know the theory part, if you don't know the faults that happen, then it gets difficult to handle the dough, or rectify that problem. And if you have a good knowledge of breads, then you can rectify the problem as well. So we'll be covering a very two wide topics there. We'll be covering many techniques there. I'll be telling you how to proof the bread, how to bake a bread properly, so that it doesn't get burned always in the OTG, or sometimes also, because in OTG there it is a bit tricky to bake the bread, since the OTG size is small and the rods are just above the bread. So sometimes the chances are that the bread might get burned. So there is a way to bake it, and so that it doesn't get burned. So we'll be covering that also, and we'll be covering breads like a normal white bread loaf which we get in the market. We'll be covering the 100% whole wheat bread. So 100% whole wheat bread you don't even get in the market. There's some maida involved in that. So but we'll be making 100% whole wheat, and if you have seen our stories in the recent days, then you would have seen the texture of that bread, and that was super soft. So that we'll be covering, and focaccia, ciabatta that is the advanced bread that we'll be covering. So a wide range of breads and wide range of theory topics we'll be covering in that. If you are interested, you can just see the link and click on that, and you can see the page, and you can have the information from there also.
Shiv, there like what is the? Can you tell them that they have only 24 hours to register? After that, the registration will be closed.
Yeah, so this is actually the last day for the registration process, because since we are starting from Tuesday, so we'll be closing with the registration maybe today night or tomorrow morning, and very few seats are left, I guess. So you can, if you are really interested in breads, if you want to make a career, or you want to, just sell your breads from home, then you can go and visit the page and see the details there.
Shiv, they're asking, is preheating required for baking breads?
Yes, preheating is actually required for baking anything. So the temperature at what you have to bake, you have to first preheat your oven, because if you don't preheat your oven, the product might spoil. Product will spoil actually.
Okay. Shiv, they're asking, what would be the timing of the course?
Timing would be from 11 to 2 for 8 days, and there will be one gap in the week, that would be next Sunday, I guess.
Okay, Shiv. Shiv, they're asking, any good brand of castor sugar that you can recommend?
Or you can either use Mavana, you can use Trust, that both are fine.
Shiv, they're asking, is window pane test necessary for every bread?
Yes, window pane test is necessary for every bread and for every dough, because that is the only test with which you get to know the gluten formation. If you don't know the gluten formation, then you'll be just eyeballing it that yes, the gluten has been formed. Even if you have been making breads regularly also, then I'll also suggest that you do the window pane test, because with that you get sure that yes, the gluten has been formed. So that yes, it is very important.
So somebody joined late. They're asking,
Yeah.
when did you add yeast?
I added the yeast at the starting only, with the rest of the dry ingredients with the flour.
Why is milk added in bread, and does it support the shelf life of the bread?
See, milk, yes, it decreases the shelf life of the bread a bit, but milk actually gives the richer dough, because milk, and richer dough and rich color also. So if you don't want to add the milk, you can skip it and just increase the quantity of water a bit, and then you can bake it easily.
Shiv, should we bake it more?
No, sure, So can you just melt this?
Yeah, sure.
Alright, so it is out of the bread is out of the oven, so that took us, I guess, around 15 minutes we have been talking. So as you can see, it has a nice color on it, and it is soft. So right now also we'll be putting melted garlic butter on it, so that it absorbs the flavor and it gives a shine also. So I've just given my team to melt the butter, and then we'll just drizzle it over the top, and either you can consume it hot, or you can just let it cool down on the cooling rack, and then you can consume it later on. If you want to store them, then you can just wrap it and keep it. So the butter is melted. I'm just gonna drizzle it so that it gets incorporated in the bread and there's a nice flavor. Like this, you can just drizzle the garlic butter on the top. It's okay if you don't even brush it. You can just use a brush and drizzle it so that it can get absorbed in the dough, in the bread. Sorry. Do we have any more questions?
Yes, chef. Any substitute of garlic in this recipe?
See, since we are making garlic knots, so I wouldn't suggest a substitute, but any other flavor you can make.
Chef, they're asking, can they use milk powder instead of milk?
Yes, you can use milk powder as well. If you don't want to use milk, you can use add the milk powder about 10 grams, but you'll have to increase the water quantity since if you are omitting the milk, the liquid quantity is getting decreased, so you have to compensate it for that.
Okay. Chef, they're asking, will they be able to see this video again?
Yes, you'll be able to access this video on IGTV as well as on the YouTube also on the Truthful Nation page.
Okay, chef. Someone is asking, can they use icing sugar?
You don't have to use the icing sugar. The castor sugar is fine. Icing sugar has corn flour present in that, so I wouldn't recommend that.
Chef, many of them are asking that they don't have the stand mixer. So
Yeah.
what can they do? How to knead
See,
it?
in the starting, if you have joined later, maybe then in the starting I have told you how to knead with hands. So you just have to follow that method, and at the point which I do the the window pane test, you just have to do that. So while you are kneading with hands, also it will take a bit more time, that maybe 5 to 10 minutes. But you'll reach that point where the dough is smooth and you can easily do the window pane test.
Chef, somebody is asking, can they use ragi flour or any other flour to make it healthier?
See, I'll again repeat my point. If you can add any flour you want, but the protein ratio of every flour is different. So when you add the whole wheat flour or the ragi flour is actually very dense. Even if you add 5 grams of it, the bread will be very dense. So that's why you can add, but the result would be different.
Alright, chef. Chef, they're asking, can we use the leftover dough the next day?
See, you can use the leftover dough the next day, but you don't have to keep it in the fridge. You have to keep it in the freezer. Otherwise, if you keep it in the fridge, it will get proofed.
Alright, chef. I think we are done, chef. You can just show them the...
Okay, I'll just show you the texture. So it is quite hot. So if it is visible. So here also, I guess the focus is here. It is here. So as you can see, it is very soft. And I'll just tear it also. As you can see the texture inside, it is very soft and it is quite hot also. But it is done. So it took us around 10 to 15 minutes, and it was done. Since the dough size is small, if you are using a bigger portion size, like 50 to 60 grams, it might take few minutes more for the baking process.
So we can remove the tray.
Sure. Just okay, so you can have a closer look.
Chef, somebody is asking, can they use stove gas for cooking breads?
See, again, someone asked a question, can we bake it in the cooker also? So yes, cooker you'll be putting on the gas only. So the thing is, the portion you'll be able to make less. So the number of portion you'll be making would be less because the cooker size is small, or the kadhai you might be using is small. So, and you can only put a round tray inside that, you can't keep a big tray in that. So 2 to 3 portion at max you can bake at one time.
Alright, chef. I think we are done for the day. You can tell them that we'll be sharing the registration information after
Okay.
this video.
Okay, so guys, we'll be sharing the registration link, and the link is also there in the description also. You can see there as well, and you can register there. You can just see the page, and this video will be there on the YouTube as well as on the Instagram, on IGTV, on Truthful Nation page, so you can access there at any time. And the recipe card is shared on the YouTube, and it will be shared on the Instagram as well on our stories. and you can access and you can see the quantities.
Last question,
Yes.
chef. What is the shelf life and how to store this bread?
See, the shelf life would be, as it has garlic in it, the flavor will get a bit bitter. So you can store it for 2 to 3 days also. Just cling wrap it or keep them in the airtight container and keep them outside only, not in the fridge. Otherwise, because in the fridge the breads get dried up. So either cling wrap it, just combine them, or keep them in a bowl. Just cling wrap that bowl and you can keep them.
Chef, can you
Yes.
just move the tray to the
Sure.
towards the camera? Right?
Is the focus? Right.
Okay. Chef, they're asking your name.
My name is Chef Dipanshu.
Alright.
Alright, so we'll be signing off. Okay, guys, it was lovely teaching you guys, and good day. Bye bye. Take care.